Throughout this year, China has faced unprecedented economic challenges and successive waves of epidemics. Since November, major cities in China have reported overwhelmed hospitals, and social media has shown that many families have been affected by the virus, leading to a significant number of deaths. However, the Chinese Communist Party has been actively suppressing information about the true extent of the epidemic, leading to widespread public discontent. Many observers believe that China is on the verge of significant change. Various areas in Beijing witnessed an unusual occurrence of red auroras, painting the sky in a blood-red hue. According to experts following the traditional Chinese belief in the unity of heaven and humanity, such celestial phenomena are considered ominous signs for Zhongnanhai, foretelling significant events in China. On the evening of December 1st, citizens in Beijing, Hebei, Heilongjiang, Xinjiang, Inner Mongolia, and other regions captured awe-inspiring auroras. The Beijing aurora quickly became a trending topic, with rare auroras documented in Huairou and Mentugu districts. Videos circulating online showed that around 8 p.m. on December 1st, the sky in Huairou, Beijing, suddenly turned blood red, intensifying before disappearing. Last year in May, similar blood-red skies appeared in Zhejiang's Zhoushan, Fujian's Fuzhou, and a blood river in Baise, Guangxi, areas closely associated with the top leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. In an article for Epoch Times on December 3rd, a commentator mentioned the ancient concept of the unity of heaven and humanity, where celestial phenomena correspond to earthly events. Historical texts considered the appearance of a blood-red sky and blood rivers as ill omens, predicting war, famine, unjust imprisonments, and potential political upheavals. Several blood-red warnings were given in locations closely related to the CCP's top leadership, serving as clear and urgent messages to Zhongnanhai, indicating a highly precarious situation. For instance, a Chinese folk prophecy book, Iron Plate Picture, mentioned the white-feathered bird as the leader of the doomed party, suggesting a tragic fate for those protecting the party. The character for Xi in Xi Jinping can be broken down into white feather. In the Tianliang Times program on December 3rd, Zhang Tianliang, a China expert and professor at New York Feitian University, explained that ancient China used the term red gas to describe auroras, with the color red symbolizing blood. In alignment with the theory of the unity of heaven and man, the occurrence of auroras at mid to low latitudes indicates the impending unfolding of significant events in the human realm. Zhang pointed out that Beijing is not the only location experiencing auroras. Previously, similar red sky phenomena occurred in Zhejiang's Zhoushan and Fujian, as Xi Jinping mainly rose to power in Fujian and Zhejiang, with key officials around him belonging to the Zhejiang and Fujian factions. The appearance of ominous signs in these areas may also foreshadow troubles for Xi. The phenomenon of a blood-red sky has once again occurred, this time in Fuzhou, Fujian. On May 11th, a resident captured the blood-red sky, sparking widespread attention and speculation. Social media users jokingly commented that fishing boats should avoid turning on lights at night to prevent scaring people. Previously, on the evening of May 7th, Zhoushan in Zhejiang also experienced a blood-red sky for about 20 minutes. Some residents even reported it to the police, asking if there was a fire. While fires can turn the sky red, it is not considered an anomaly and is easily detected or witnessed by many. For example, during 2019-2020, Australia faced massive bushfires that burned vast forests, causing the deaths of over 3 billion animals over the course of a year. On November 28th at 9 a.m., Inner Mongolia witnessed the rare occurrence of a phantom sun, with many people capturing videos and sharing them online. Videos showed the sun surrounded by a large circular colored halo, with two additional smaller suns appearing on either side. Online information indicates that the phenomenon of the phantom sun in Inner Mongolia lasted for over 2 hours. On November 30th, Jiangsu also witnessed the same phenomenon, with a large colorful halo appearing in the sky above the sun, and many people captured photos to share on social media. While these dazzling phantom sun phenomena left many in awe, they have historically been considered ominous. Ancient Chinese beliefs associated the sun with earthly rulers, and celestial omens were closely linked to those in power. The appearance of 2 or more suns in the sky at once was seen as a bad omen, signaling the replacement of the ruler and the downfall of a dynasty. Over the past year, the CCP leadership has continued to pursue policies against historical trends, leading to economic difficulties, the accelerated departure of foreign funds and enterprises, a surge in unemployment, severe currency devaluation, social unrest, and rising public discontent. Mysterious purges of high-ranking officials, such as the unclear death of Li Keqiang, have fueled concerns among numerous party members. Various signs seem to predict the impending end of the CCP regime amid storms and turbulence. China's recent warning signs. Why are people urged to hoard grain? China's disease situation is extremely alarming. On December 1st, Yiwu City in Zhejiang Province suddenly issued a grain hoarding initiative. In it, it stated that urban and rural residents should maintain a stockpile of at least 10 days' worth of daily grain consumption, calculated per household. The initiative emphasizes the participation of the entire population in social grain reserves. Pay attention to this phrase. Everyone in society must participate in grain reserves. It further mentions that canteens in various departments and units should maintain a stockpile not less than the previous year's 15-day average consumption. This grain hoarding initiative bewildered everyone. During times of peace and prosperity, why suddenly call on everyone to hoard grain? The initiative claims it's based on considerations of saving food. But do you believe it? It brings to mind the saying, "Have grain in hand, no need to panic." Encouraging grain hoarding implies that a time of panic might be approaching. Besides evoking memories of the lockdown a year ago, there seems to be no more reasonable explanation. Considering the recent situation in China with the influenza virus, respiratory infections, and the new strain of the coronavirus, one wonders if there are plans for local lockdowns. It's hard to avoid such speculations, and it indeed unsettles people. Yiwu City is a county-level city under the administration of Jinhua City in Zhejiang. It's also a well-known hub for small commodities and the first place in China where a local government has issued a grain hoarding call this year. This brings us to a characteristic of China's political system. The lower the government level, the more grassroots it is, the more likely it is to speak the truth or make startling moves. Many times these two aspects coincide. Something startling is equivalent to telling the truth. Why does this happen? Let's briefly talk about it today. In the past 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, China has witnessed several absurd incidents, such as the ridiculous drama of an entire county having one positive nucleic acid test. China's response to the Omicron outbreak raises questions. One of the most absurd incidents occurred in October 2022 in Yongji City, a county-level city in Shaanxi Province under the administration of Yuncheng City. During the peak of the Omicron outbreak, with no new cases detected in the entire city, they decided to enforce a complete lockdown. All public places and streets were closed for 3 days. Rather than discovering a positive case and then repeatedly conducting nucleic acid tests and implementing various 14-day risk control measures, lowering the risk level step by step before lifting restrictions, they chose to close down for 3 days as a preventive measure with smaller losses. This was the mindset of the Yongji city government officials at the time. There are two kinds of logics in the world: general logic, and Chinese logic. Inside this box, it's relatively easy to understand the thoughts of CCP officials. However, looking at it from outside the box, it appears absurd. In the presence of a spreading epidemic, whether you conduct citywide tests or implement various control measures, it can still be considered an epidemic prevention measure, albeit quite inhumane and extreme. If there's no epidemic here yet, why take preventive measures? If you follow the most extreme epidemic prevention measures, it becomes very absurd. This is called putting experts aside and following leaders blindly, entirely devoid of a scientific basis, relying solely on the stability of the leader's hat. The recent events in China, such as the preemptive call for stockpiling and the resumption of nucleic acid testing, are seen as signals related to the recent wave of the epidemic starting in October. The cancellation of nucleic acid testing in China started in December of the previous year, transitioning from mandatory testing to voluntary testing. However, from December onwards, mandatory nucleic acid testing was gradually reintroduced, creating confusion among people who thought the testing had been completely canceled. In some provinces, there is a resumption of health codes, suggesting that these signs indicate a standby mode, ready to implement epidemic control measures if needed. The speaker urges viewers to share their recent experiences related to returning to China, especially if they have encountered unexpected nucleic acid testing. If there are no plans to take any action against those who test positive, there is no need for testing in the first place. Analyzing China's unusual approaches to epidemic control and economic challenges. Therefore, with those confirmed as positive, will they be forcibly isolated, sent to official facilities, or allowed home quarantine? Or is regular reporting of body temperature sufficient? This matter is expected to have follow-up information, but we may need to wait a few days to confirm, as individuals testing positive are likely to be restricted in their communication during isolation. So this is a speculation that if the number of nucleic acid-positive cases is not significant, the approach may involve isolating them in dedicated facilities. Here, there is a difference in logic between common sense and Chinese logic. Common logic suggests that if there are only a few positive cases, the government should not disturb more people and should allow those who test positive to isolate themselves at home. COVID-19 itself is a disease people are familiar with, not a new one that requires extensive monitoring. However, Chinese logic dictates that once a person tests positive, home isolation is not enough. Community officials are expected to supervise, but they can't sit at your doorstep 24/7. So, the alternative might be to seal off the entire building. This administrative approach is considered practical. If the community officials are more humane, they might not seal off the entire building but inform neighbors that someone needs isolation and everyone should keep an eye out. If someone from that household wanders out during isolation, notify me immediately. This would be considered quite lenient. Regardless of the approach, it will lead to the spread of information, which is highly unfavorable for economic recovery. People thought the pandemic was over, and suddenly these preventive measures are back. This could deter restaurant owners from opening and lead hesitant factory owners to lay off workers. It will undoubtedly have an impact on societal sentiment, something the Chinese government does not want to see. Therefore, if measures are needed against those testing positive, my estimation is that they may adopt an approach to isolate these individuals and keep the information from spreading. Looking back at the early stages of the pandemic, from late 2019 to early 2020, information was concealed. Currently, with limited information channels and foreigners exiting the scene, it's crucial to elevate the risk levels. I hope most people understand this, considering the potential consequences, similar to how a bank would treat you for serious credit card defaults in North America. At this point, there's also a possibility that the authorities themselves haven't fully grasped the actual situation of this round of the epidemic and don't know what to do. Therefore, within a certain range, reinstating nucleic acid testing in some places and putting health codes back online in others is a preparatory measure. This situation is not mutually exclusive with what we discussed earlier. Contradictions may coexist. Failing to understand the actual situation of the epidemic, this issue itself is an aftermath of over 2 years of sidelining science and the dominance of power. Currently, I'm skeptical about whether there is a genuinely scientific epidemiological investigation in China, given that everyone capable of sustaining themselves in a technical capacity is scrutinizing each other. There is also the frustration of South China's internal defense. A lot of headaches, from U.S.-China relations to Qingang and Li Shangfu to the rocket force and real estate defaults. In times like this, would health officials or chief expert advisors dare to report bad news? The big boss is irritated, and if you report these troubles to your boss again, you'll inexplicably get struck by lightning. China's current situation is a continuous, deepening cycle of troubles, with everyone busy every day. Despite issuing new speeches and documents daily, it seems ineffective because the most critical and urgent issues are either set aside or intentionally ignored. Take, for example, the slogan, "Supporting the Private Economy." The document is circulated, but the most crucial and urgent issue lies in the contradiction between finance and the development of the private economy. Without addressing this contradiction, how can the private economy recover? Private investment needs to flourish, requiring substantial tax reductions, reduced administrative approvals, and regulations. However, the fiscal demand is to collect funds from enterprises once the land sale ATM is empty. Reducing this tax becomes challenging. Government officials need to prove their importance, ensuring not a single person is cut from their positions. This forces them to make themselves extremely busy, creating more regulatory and approval mechanisms. The more procedures you have, the longer the approval process, damping entrepreneurial enthusiasm. Currently, Chinese society is caught in a state of being poor and busy, with 996 for office workers and even government officials in the front lines working 996. Everyone is getting busier and poorer. Epidemics and investigations into public safety should be prioritized, requiring concerted efforts from society. Yet, in this situation, besides delegating power to various regions to manage themselves, there's not much else that can be done. Epidemics are highly localized, and real estate is an even more localized issue. The problems faced by two places are never entirely the same. Look at Guangzhou and Shenzhen, both first-tier cities very close to each other, yet the real estate market data for October and November are entirely different temperatures. The pressure of this series of crises may be the beginning of the disintegration of the centralized power of the Chinese Communist Party. Xi Jinping fought for a third term, reaching the peak of personal power. However, at the beginning of this term, the overall crisis erupted. Apart from redistributing the acquired power, there seems to be no way to solve the problems.